Can we order Lazy Boys? I do want to welcome everybody to the first Dawn at Oaklawn of this season. I am very happy to be joined by my work son, track announcer Matt Dinerman. And if you've listened to a thrilling stretch run at Oaklawn lately, you've certainly heard the voice of Matt Dinerman from growing up at Del Mar to becoming one of the youngest track announcers in the country. His journey has taken him from California to Washington to now Hot Springs, where he's become a fan favorite. The energy that he gives, his storytelling style, and I'm very excited that you are helping me kick off another Dawn at Oaklawn season.
Just another beautiful season here at Oaklawn where the sun always shines, they say. So happy to be with you this morning, Nancy. And boy, I mean, the fans are out here. It just goes to show when I look at all the folks here, we've got some of the best fans in the world, not just the country, in the world, racing fans.
I will concur. A lot of dedicated people come out to join us. Now, Matt's a little bit younger than a lot of the race announcers that are currently in the booth. Matt, what first drew you to race calling?
You know, when I was a little kid, when my dad took me to the track, anywhere from 10 to 11 years old, and I vaguely remember it, he remembers it better, but I would always ask him, how does that guy talking to us, how does he know the horses' names and the lengths? And I was really fascinated with it, but that was as far as it went. So I think that it was always in my head immediately that there was a seed there that was planted in some way, shape, or form that was saying maybe that's something I'd be interested in. And then as I thought about it, I realized as I got older into high school, first of all, I love being at the races. That's first and foremost. I just love being at the track. I was the type of kid that would always tell my dad, I want to stay for the last race. I want to stay for every race. He'd say, no, we got to go home to mom to get dinner. So with that in mind, I always wanted to be at the track. But more importantly, as I got older, into high school, into college, I said, you know, thinking about the announcer's job and what he or she is being asked to do, they help make the experience better for the racing fan, for the person there. It's a hospitality position.
Right.
So I thought to myself, how cool would that be if I could help people just like they helped me have a good experience? So
like
it's not about being the show, but it's about helping make the experience better for everybody.
So being that Del Mar was your first real experience, I'm assuming Trevor Denman was somebody that you really aspired and admired.
Absolutely, and I actually got some really good one-on-one time with Trevor. I mean, I would sit in the booth before his races, sometimes 45 minutes, just talking to him about all sorts of things. And one thing about Trevor, and I'm sure you've met him over the years, a very gentle person, very nice guy, pretty soft-spoken for the most part. But Trevor, what I admired about him was just his persona and the way he carried himself, somebody who was always professional. And of course, his race calling speaks for itself. I mean, somebody who could pick out at the half-mile pole who was going to win the race and really zone in. But Trevor was somebody that I looked up to and somebody that I asked a lot of questions about announcing, even more so than just calling the race, talking about the profession itself, talking about pay, how to negotiate pay, things like that. Yeah, so we talked about all sorts of things, and Trevor was always very gracious in taking time to talk to me. And he actually was the first announcer to actually listen to a tape of mine and give me critique.
That's a big thing to say right there.
Yeah.
You know? I mean, he's South African, right?
He is, yeah.
Okay,
he's
so
from South
a lot
Africa.
of times you'll see track announcers kind of hold their booth for decades and decades. And, you know, we have that high respect for them and their position. Typically, horse racing is familial. You have to know somebody. What was it like for you to really break into the industry?
Well, okay, so when I was a youngster and we lived in a gated community, my parents and I, and we actually met a neighbor named Gail Van Leer, who's a bloodstock agent.
Very well known out in California.
Absolutely, and in the 90s, she actually was the racing manager for Golden Eagle Farm, so best pal fame. And obviously, she had a very extensive background in the business, doing more than just managing Golden Eagle. It was also bloodstock agent work. She's a bloodstock agent. And my dad and her were actually on the homeowners association for this gated community. So my dad and I were taken by Gail to the backstretch to have a backstretch tour, and I really loved it, meeting the horses, and I remember Bob Baffert was there, and I just remember him with his white hair, and I've seen that guy on TV all the time, and I met John Sadler that morning, and we got to pet some horses that Gail had purchased for clients. And then when I was 15, I was looking for a job, and I got my work permit. You can legally work at 16 just regularly, but you need a work permit when you're 15.
Okay.
And she got me a job walking hots for none other than John Sadler.
You kind of got the golden ticket that a lot of people don't get, that
Yeah, I got
high-end
lucky.
experience.
Yeah.
You definitely got the golden ticket.
And that was a time when John was rolling. I mean, he probably had 150 horses at the time, two different strings, and it was like Mark Cassie's string here. It was like grade 1 horse after grade 1 horse. And I could have worked for him for 1 summer, 2 summers, but I went back 4 summers because I just loved it and fell in love with the horses. And it was really cool to be part of the team and just learn about the backstretch, how it works, but also I think the most important thing, not just the actual physical experience, but being able to understand that everybody has roles in the business to play.
Very true.
You respect everybody who's a part of the game, because the game isn't what it is unless every single person is doing their role, doing it well, and in the case of the backstretch workers, working tirelessly to where 99.9% of people don't even see them, and
Right.
they're the reason that we're able to have a lot of fun and we get to see our horses run and all the joys that come along with the game. It's a big part is because of people that we may not notice. So going forward after that experience, it's just always very important for me to remember how many roles there are and to be respectful.
So coming up, getting your feet wet in the industry, you kind of had a pretty cool job up in the Del Mar press box.
Yeah.
And that kind of really gave you some of your vocabulary and vernacular, I think, that you have today.
And that was, I believe that was when I really started honing in the whole race calling skill, was in the press box. It was 4 summers had passed, and I really wanted to try something new at that point. Like a lot of youngsters, you know, you think maybe being a trainer would be fun. And as much as the highs are fantastic, it's an everyday job. You don't get a vacation. You got to wake up early every morning. I said, I want to try something else and see maybe if front side was something I'd be interested in. And believe it or not, Gail Van Leer, I asked her, do you know of any jobs around? She goes, they're looking for a press box steward, which basically prints out past performances, helps riders get information, all that stuff, send results and past performances to the newspapers, so doing all sorts of things. And along the way, being in that position, I learned about frontside management, the different roles of, you know, mutuals and marketing and all that stuff being around it.
Machine.
Absolutely.
Yes.
So with that in mind, I applied for the job. I got an interview. I interviewed well enough, I guess, because I got the job, and it was an absolute blast. I worked under Dan Smith and Mac McBride, who are 2 legends in the media game. Dan's like a grandfather to me, and Mac has always been fantastic and always answered my questions. They're very, very much media people who have been around a long time and gone to a lot of different places. So to learn from them was really, really special. And along the way, while I was working in the press box, I actually got my binoculars, which I still use today, from my uncle and aunt from a holiday season gift. And I wanted to be an announcer and I wanted to practice, and I asked Dan and Mac, can I go in an empty booth, because they have multiple booths in the Del Mar press box. It's pretty big, and it's like a room that faces the track, and I was able to actually bring my phone in there and practice recording calling races, and that's where everything started. And that was, and I still have the book. I made a book, and I would listen to other announcers, and I would look in the dictionary, and I would write all these phrases in there that I could use, and that's where the vocabulary started to grow.
Love that. So your first real gig came at Emerald Downs in Washington. How did you find out about the job, and what gave you the encouragement to go ahead and make that a career move?
So I was in college at the time. I hadn't graduated yet. I was very close to the end of graduating. I think it was, I would think in April, somewhere along those lines, Emerald Downs put out a press release. And the press release said Robert Geller, who was the announcer there and the only announcer at Emerald for 19 years at the time, he is going to pursue other opportunities. And they hadn't announced it yet, but he received the position at Woodbine in Canada, where
he still is.
He's still there. It's the premier track in Canada, and Robert's as good of an announcer as there is out there.
And a good person as well.
Great person. Robert is just you want to talk about a Care Bear? He's like a gentle bear. Like he's not like a big, large guy, but I mean, he is a gentle, nice guy, very soft-spoken and very authentic type of person.
Love that.
And he became one of my mentors as well, working at Emerald. But so what happened was, in the release, it said, we're looking for experienced race callers. At the time, Tom Durkin had just retired.
Okay.
And when somebody that's significant in the race calling game retires, what happens is it's like a domino effect. He steps aside, somebody somewhere, in this case Larry Colmus goes to New York, wherever Larry was, that position's filled, and it's just a domino effect. And I just told my dad, who knows looking back now what would have happened if I didn't get the Emerald job, but I said, I need to apply because who knows when this domino effect's going to happen again. And I felt really strong about it. I know I'm not experienced, but I need to apply. I need to get my name out there. And I didn't have any expectations of getting the job, so I applied for the position. And then about a week later, I was driving home from Santa Anita because I was at college at Chapman, which is about an hour away. So I drive to Santa Anita and practice on the roof. I was very dedicated to getting good at it. And I got a call while on the freeway in traffic from Sophia McKee, who was the marketing director at Emerald at the time. And she said, we'd like to fly you up tomorrow and call 2 races. Get your stuff. We'll fly you up in the morning. And I was absolutely scared to death. It was a fear to call over the microphone for me at that time. I was very nervous. I didn't feel I was ready, really. I felt like I was very raw. But just going up there, I flew on my own for the first time. I mean, I've flown on a plane with people, but on my own for the first time. And I actually drove down to San Diego to get a suit, and because my suit was down there. And we called 2 races, and amazingly, on Mother's Day the next day, I was offered the position.
That's amazing, because starting out, the people that you were surrounded by were the cream of the crop. Going from Gil Van Leer to John Sadler to Trevor Denman. So really had a good foundation to kind of set you up for that position.
I think so. And the support was just so paramount, I think, to early success, because I was somebody, in all honesty, who needed that support. I learned in baseball that players, they are motivated in different ways. When I played baseball for a long time, some players, they needed to be yelled at. They needed to be, hey, you got to pay attention, you got to do this. Others needed positive encouragement. I was somebody who needed positive encouragement. You can do it. We believe in you. And I think I've grown since then. I think I can pump myself up and really have a lot more inner confidence now than I had a long time back in school. But all of these people were paramount in supporting me and helping me get in the right mindset. Not only just giving advice, it was the support and we believe in you. And even Trevor Denman, he told me, when he listened to my calls, that he really thought I had what it took to be an announcer. And he didn't need to say, I believe in you. He just gave that vibe, I believe in you. And so did Dan Smith, and so did Gail Van Leer, and so did my parents. And my whole support system, I feel like when I'm calling a race, it's like they're all behind me in support still.
So what were Mama and Papa Dinerman's reactions when you said, hey, I want to be a race announcer for a living?
So my dad, I remember telling him for the first time, I do remember, and he said, are you willing to travel? And I said, yes. And he goes, are you willing to do this to where you may not get paid fantastic right off the bat? I said, yes. And he goes, then I support it. Mama Dinerman, in 100% transparency, was just hoping that I wouldn't bet a lot at the racetrack. That was her concern from day one. She wanted to make sure her son was not wasting his paycheck. Luckily for her, I am not somebody to waste my paycheck. I am somebody that some people get the adrenaline rush of going to the store and buying nice clothes. I get an adrenaline rush from seeing my bank account go up in value. So with that in mind, she learned right away, and my dad would tell her, because my dad knew right away, because he was the one who would take me to the races. Right. He's not thinking about gambling. He likes the horses. He likes the experience of being on track. And another thing for me was socialization. It's always been for me a really nice socialization tool. To meet people. I enjoy being able to go to the track and talk to people, whether I'm actually working or just a fan. And once my mom figured that out, and it was something I really wanted to do, she was supportive of it. Okay. But being mama hen, my mom is very motherly in that way. She just wanted to make sure that I could feed myself and I could live under a nice roof and all that stuff. And if I could do that, she was going to support me 100%.
So you had the experience to call at Emerald Downs, and how long did that position last?
So I was there for 2.5 seasons. So I got there halfway through the first season, and then I called 2 full seasons. It was a fantastic experience. And another note about that too, I just want to mention, is I talk about the support system. The people there, they were so kind and so accommodating, and they knew coming in, this announcer isn't a Robert Geller. He doesn't have much experience. They took me in like I was one of them, and I became one of them very, very quickly. And because of their kindness and their openness to a new announcer and giving me the time I needed and taking a breath if I made a mistake, and he's not perfect, he's going to get better. Because of that, that helped me very, very much be successful there.
So after a few seasons at Emerald Downs, Matt then transitioned here to Oaklawn Park. Tell everybody else what that process was like.
Well, I was at Golden Gate first, as
Okay.
you remember. So
Yep.
7 years, 7 years there, 1 year as a paddock analyst, but I had called there for 6 years. And Golden Gate, unfortunately, a couple days before I was to go down to San Diego to visit family for a little vacation, because we weren't running in July, there was an announcement made that Golden Gate was ceasing racing operations,
Yes.
which happened in 2023. So it was the time when this happened. I had gotten a text message from somebody here who said, really sorry about what's going on. Not somebody that worked here,
Right.
but somebody who's well-versed in Oaklawn and knows people, and says, if you're interested in applying for the announcing position, we'll put in a good word for you, basically. And that was as far as it went, obviously. And I said, I appreciate it. I need to think about it. It was literally the day that this had been announced, and I had just learned I was losing my job, and it was a devastating experience. So I flew down to San Diego the next day after I got this text, and I get in the car, and my dad's waiting at the airport, and he hands me a baseball when I get in the car. And I looked at the baseball. I said, what is this? And he said, remember when you were on the mound? And I said, yeah, because I was a pitcher. And he says, I want you to control your game, just like you did on the mound. Because the pitcher, when they get on the mound, they control the tempo of the game. They control their pitches. They control their mindset. The pitcher's in control before every pitch. So within 5 minutes after I was holding this baseball, sitting in the car, and we're getting on the freeway, I said, I got this text message about maybe applying for Oaklawn. Because at the time, by the way, the Oaklawn announcing position was open.
Okay.
Oaklawn was looking for their next announcer. And I just felt like, wow, that would be great to call Grade 1 horses and be in a racing town. And I'm sure I'd meet so many new people and make new friends. And my dad says, is this something you want to do? I say, well, it seems pretty appealing. What do you think? And he says, I think you'd be a great fit there. So I made a couple phone calls here to Oaklawn, and at that time, they were well into the process. I mean, they had already selected a few finalists at the time that they were really honing in on. And I said, can I please just send my tapes and my resume? I know that you're well into the process, but I'd love you to just take a look at it. And Oaklawn's management here, they said, okay, send them on in. Yep. And within the next day, I got a call saying we'd like to fly out and do an interview, and I was over the moon with it. And the next month, I stayed in the lovely Oaklawn Hotel, got a trackside view.
Not too shabby.
Not too shabby at all. And within a month after the interview, we made things official, and here we are today. Pretty amazing.
That something? So Matt is just the 6th track announcer in Oaklawn history, and obviously, a lot of people still remember the legendary voice of Terry Wallace. There's a lot of good moments that have happened in that announcer's booth. What is one of your most thrilling race calls that you've gotten to experience here? Because there's been so many great, phenomenal horses go on to be Derby winners, Breeders' Cup winners, champions. Is there one specific call that maybe sticks out in your head?
That's a good question, and it's a hard question to answer because I think for thrilling race calls, there are different ones that mean different things. I am deciding to answer this question by giving you sort of an off-the-wall answer to a race call, to a random race.
Okay.
I could tell you Muth because he was my first Grade 1 race winner I've ever called. When you call your first grade one, you'll never forget that. I could tell you about Torpedo Anna, calling a horse like that. We talk about full circle moments on our show. We've talked about it recently.
Love a good full circle moment.
Everything comes in full circle. And these are types of calls as an announcer when you first call your first horse of the year in your first grade one. It's like, wow, this is pretty incredible that I'm in this spot now to be able to do this, because when you're practicing calling races, you think about just the whole journey and, you know, calling in the Del Mar press box, and who would have known that in a decade, you know, I'd be calling some of the best horses in the world. But I'm going to give you one race that was totally just sort of a random answer because I want to spice the answers up a little bit here. There was a horse named Carbone who ran here.
Yeah.
At that point, he was well regarded for Steve Asmussen, and he was trying a first level allowance race going around of ground, and he won going away. Now, it turns out Carbone did not turn out to be what everybody thought he might be able to be, but at the time there was a lot of hype that, hey, maybe if this horse can stretch out, he can be on the Derby trail, and it was very early in the meet. And I called the race, and he won going away, and there was all this talk about him before the race. And then after the race, I turned on the television volume to FanDuel and also Naira Live, and they were both talking about this horse is a serious horse on the Derby trail. This horse could be the real deal. And I remember I just got sort of a jolt of adrenaline, feeling like, oh my God, like I am calling races that are this important to
Under
the
the
public.
national spotlight.
Exactly. So even though it wasn't the most thrilling race call in terms of just calling the race, it was a moment that I won't forget because it really hit me at that moment.
Oh, that's cool.
Wow, I've made it to the top level. Because I believe when I was at Emerald and Golden Gate, I felt like I made it because I was doing something I loved, and that's what mattered to me. But it was a different level sitting here at Oaklawn saying, wow, I wanted to call grade one types of horses, and here I am calling races in a place that, like you said, gets so much national attention. And that was a time when it really hit me, I'm at Oaklawn. It was that moment.
So one thing that is that you have in common with our horses and our horsemen is when the meet's over, we all kind of scatter. And I think we have, maybe because Arkansas is so centrally located, plus the amount of money that we give away to our horsemen, everybody goes somewhere else on a circuit. And you've developed a really good circuit as he now gets to summer on the Jersey Shore.
Yes. And definitely feels a little different than this outside today. Yeah, I got really, really lucky to be able to get an opportunity to call at Monmouth. It's a total coincidence that it starts their meet the week after we end. So
not much downtime.
No, there's not much downtime. That's one negative about it is I don't really get a vacation. It's like 2 days after this meet ends, I'm on my way driving to New Jersey. But while I was in my first season here, I got a call from Monmouth management, and they were looking for another announcer because their announcer, who at the time was Chris Griffin, had accepted a full-time position in New York. And believe it or not, Dave Johnson, he was somebody who sent an email to management when he had heard early that Monmouth needed a new announcer before it was public. David heard about it. And he said, you better look at that guy at Oaklawn. He's really good. And I knew him a little bit, but not that well. So for him to do that was quite the thing. It felt like Trevor Denman. It's like when Michael Jordan is like, hey, you're a really good basketball player. That's what it felt like when Trevor or Dave Johnson endorsed me. So Monmouth is lovely. It's a beautiful track, as per everywhere I go. Really nice people. And it's a great place to summer. I mean, a really good quality of living. And if you love good food, you want to visit the Jersey Shore, Nancy. Definitely they have that.
Obviously, we have the best fans in racing, and it's pretty cool to see how the fans react at Monmouth. How do those racing cultures kind of compare?
In terms of Oaklawn and Monmouth? Yeah. Well, I think that you've got a community that both very much supports it, but I think that the key there is both places, they compare in the sense that it's a community-driven experience. I'm not saying Monmouth is as popular as the beach, but what I will say there is that Monmouth Park is seen as a destination to be within the Jersey Shore in the summertime. This is an experience when you're around the Jersey Shore to come to Monmouth Park. it's a big part of the Jersey Shore. You've got the beach, you've got the food, you've got the surrounding areas, Philadelphia, New York City, of course. But you've got Monmouth Park as well, and Monmouth, I mean, they have a restaurant, the Blue Grotto, on property. They have sports betting on the premises. And the racing, it's one of these things where if you're in the Jersey Shore, most of the time, if you're there long enough, especially on a weekend, you go to Monmouth to experience it. Versus Oaklawn, when you're in Hot Springs, Arkansas, or anywhere close and the races are going on, this is a destination for the community.
Absolutely.
So it's both very important, both tracks, Oaklawn and Monmouth, within the community, drives a lot of jobs. It drives the economy in a positive direction. So that's, I think, the biggest similarity is the fact that both places are very much part of the community, and they're very much planted in the community as a destination to come to when you come visit the area.
Now, a lot of people think you just, get the horses out in the post parade, call the race, announce the winner. What is something that we might be surprised about your job?
Well, I would say the preparation. I'm somebody who prepares very hard, especially here with 4 days a week. I don't really get a day off that often. I'm not here on property every day, but I'm at home handicapping, watching replays. I host a YouTube show out of the starting gate. Make sure to check that out. I'm working on that. That takes an outline to do. It takes getting replays, sometimes asking other tracks for permission to show the replays, getting guests, making them an outline. So there's a lot of prep work that goes on behind the scenes, and it's like any other skilled profession. You just see the final product as the public. You don't see all the behind-the-scenes work that goes on with it. And I can't tell you how many times it's been 10, 11 o'clock, and I'll be at home studying because I have work to do. And I look at every race. I look at every horse. I try to treat every horse the same, which is that no matter if you're 50-1 or 1-9, you have a chance to win. I need to know who you are in case you do win. And it's also very important for the public and those people who bet the horse, the owners, the trainers, the breeders, the jockeys. Every one of them needs to be known and seen and heard. So my preparation, I mean, I would say for every race card, I do about at least 2 hours of work.
That's a lot.
A card, yeah. And especially because we're making picks on air. But I'd still do that type of prep work because it's not just handicapping. It's about looking for things that I could potentially use in a race call, adding blinkers, handicapping angles, things that people can take. And that's another thing. It's not only a hospitality job, but along with being in the hospitality position, it's about, in my opinion, sharing pertinent information that the customer can use, and the customer very much so is the gambler.
And one thing I really like and respect about Matt is track announcers, it's a hard job. There's not a whole lot of people that do it, but one cool thing is I can close my eyes or not even watch the TV, hear your call, and can tell who's where. That is a true gift.
That's the biggest compliment you can get as a race caller, Nancy. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you.
Every time you hear that, it brightens your day a little bit. So thank you.
Real quickly, if you are going to take the 9 o'clock barn tour, go ahead and make your way to the American Pharaoh statue. They're going to depart here in just a few minutes. Obviously, you grew up hearing some of the greats, Trevor Dinerman, Larry Colmus, Tom Durkin. Is there one of their race calls that stands out for you? Like you maybe had a favorite race call?
I would say probably one of my favorite race calls is Trevor Denman's Zenyatta call. And because it was so authentic, I think there are a lot of great race calls, but one thing I strive to do, which is something that Trevor's has sort of coined as his own calling style, is being able to authentically describe something without scripting it. Just seeing the race and describing it and putting in there what it needs to be called correctly. And that's the art of calling a race, is just seeing it and it just comes up and you take off the headset, you say, wow, I felt like I put exactly what I needed, phrasing, diction, all this stuff, to the vibe of it, to make it the right call, to describe the moment and paint the picture and all that stuff. And it wasn't scripted, it was very authentic. So it was more meaningful to me because that sort of encompasses what I would want to do in my race calling.
Right.
He described the moment when she won and saying how unbelievable it was, and the way he did it, it just came. Same thing with Flightline when he said, take a good look at this. You're not going to see this too often, maybe never again. It just came to him. It was the right emotion, and
Very
it really
organic.
fit the moment. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So that Zenyatta call really was a special moment, not only for the horse and the fans, but also the way Trevor was able to put all of that and make it a perfect call.
One thing that I don't think a lot of people know about you is that you are an author.
Yes,
Or an
I like
author
to write.
be.
I'm trying to be. I'm working on a book. I haven't worked on it recently. I've been starting and stopping on
You've
it.
been a little busy lately.
I've been very busy. And what I've learned about being an author or trying to be be one is it is not easy. And you get sort of a writer's block. There are times, and luckily I'm not on a deadline. Some writers that do it for a profession, they need to do. They need to work. Yeah, there's a lot of pressure. And for me, I've got as much time as I need. I could wait 10 years to put it out, 20 years. If I don't feel it's ready, I don't need to put it out. But I've always liked writing since I was a kid, and it's just a project I've been working on going through my whole experience, which has been a very unique experience, not only in the profession that I'm working in, but also just how young I've been. And there aren't a lot of people that have got the opportunities to travel like I have. So I've been sort of all throwing my experience into this project of writing and hopefully making a book one day.
Well, one thing that has definitely come into play in the industry, really in the last 10 years, is the presence of social media. And I particularly try to stay off it, but you're a really good voice. Well, because everybody has an opinion, which they are more than entitled to.
And this is a game of opinions. So if you're in
Very
racing,
much.
it's understandable, of course.
What is your experience with social media? And because a lot of times, people will rag on jockeys for a ride, a trainer for why they entered a horse in a certain position.
Yeah.
Why is it important to have social media?
Well, I think, and I agree with you, there's red and there's green when it comes to social media. And you want to stay away from the red and you want to try to hang out on the green side.
But you've always been, and it's hard to do,
It is.
always been very positive and spin a positive into something that may not be fortunate. But you always have that kind of glass half full objective on things, and that's very admirable.
If you love what you do, it's easy to be glass half full. That's how I look at it. And I've always said my whole theory on social media, it is an absolutely fantastic tool if used properly. If it is not used properly, it's as bad as it can be.
Very well.
But if it's used properly, it can be a great tool. So I try to use it as properly as possible. Having social media, I mean, it depends what kind of forum you're looking at.
Right.
And I have opinions on certain platforms that I may like more than other platforms. But I use probably for horse racing specific content, X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it, I use that the most because information can spread like that. It's very quick. You learn a lot about different jurisdictions. I get a lot of news out of social media. You used to look at the paper. You used to watch the news. Now something happens and it's right there on your phone and you get it right away and you can read articles. You just have to make sure you read the right sources. You got to make sure that you do your own research to make sure what's being said is correct. I think social media is a fantastic marketing tool for racetrack. And let's be honest, if you're an artistic person, it's a good marketing tool for your own platform and to be able to communicate with fans, especially in this business. I have met so many people through social media where I come to the track and we end up talking, and if they go, "Hi, I'm Bob." "Hi, Bob, nice to meet you." "Oh, I'm actually a horse racing guy 29. You go, "Oh, that guy." That's usually how it works. So there are many reasons to use social media, but again, you want to use it in a positive light. And I think marketing Oaklawn, marketing our races, being able to get information and learn about different types of parts of the business through that information is very useful.
I will say we are very fortunate to have some pretty influential influencers in our business that really are reaching out to that younger demographic, bringing a different generation of horse fan and horse player. One thing, Matt, that you say that I like is take a look at the odds board. It tells a story. Well, what you do out on the track is storytelling at its finest.
I appreciate it.
We thank you. I'm so happy that we have such a great chemistry on air, off air, and you, my friend, I'm just really honored to work next to you.
I really appreciate it, and likewise, our chemistry and our vibe is exactly the same off air as it is on air to all these people, and it's a special bond. We have
It
a
is.
special bond because we work every day,
Yes.
and we just have an absolute blast, and it's a pleasure being able to enjoy the fun with you.
Oh, my work kid, I love him so much. So thank you so much for the inaugural Dawn at Oaklawn for this season, and that's a wrap.